We pick up here with another key dimension of the New Culture movement, which is that the May 4th movement, the New Culture movement, is the birthplace of Chinese communism. The Chinese Communist Party was founded during the New Culture movement in 1921. And so we're going to take a few minutes to talk about the origins and the early years of Chinese socialism and communism. So the early years, so to speak, here would be 1919. Again, this foundational moment in Chinese political and cultural history up until 1934, and later on we'll talk about what that date refers to. It is the beginning of the Long March, this military retreat by the Chinese communists in the face of near extinction. But this early year, 1919 to 1934, is already a profoundly diverse phase of time. And so as you can see from this timeline, there are at least three phases into which this time period can be subdivided. 1919 to 1920, this very early period, described by some as a bewildering variety of socialisms, plural. We need to remember that there are many kinds of socialism. One of them is Bolshevism, a subset there in sort of Bolshevik Leninism, but also anarchism, anarcho-syndicalism. There are many varieties of socialism, and during this early period of China's interactions with socialism, the kinds of socialism that people in the New Culture movement were concerned with were quite diverse. 1921 to 1927 we can think of as a period of relative orthodoxy in which one form of socialism in particular, Bolshevism, begins to become ascendant, and this is pegged in 1921 to the formation of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, whose formation was in essence sponsored or assisted by members of the Communist International, behind which, of course, the Soviet Union is the key actor in attempting to export Bolshevism, Marxism, Leninism to other countries, and to, in essence, sponsor the formation of communist parties, not only in China, also in other parts of East Asia, other parts of Latin America, the African continent, and elsewhere. 1927 to 1934 being a third stage in our discussion, the peasant stage. And 1927 here as a pivotal moment is what is the White Terror. And this is a moment when a already quite rickety and quite politically sensitive alliance between this young Chinese Communist Party and the Nationalist Party of China. This is the same party we've been discussing in previous videos that sort of descends, let's say, from the Tongmenghui formed in Tokyo in 1905. And the Nationalist Party and the Chinese Communist Party form what is known as the United Front early in the lives of both of these parties. This United Front comes to an end when the Nationalists betray the Communists and, in essence, attempt to exterminate them, and quite literally through violence, mass incarceration, mass murder. And so in this, basically 1927 is the beginning of the end, at least until the PRC, of an urban base for the communists. Up until this point, Shanghai, which is the site of the formation of the CCP in 1921, Shanghai and other major Chinese cities are the main kind of main theaters of activity for Chinese communists, in factories and in schools and in universities and in teaching colleges and in high schools and so forth. Well, in 1927, with this crackdown on communists and suspected sympathizers by the nationalist state, there is really the Chinese communists flee for their lives and will flee into the rural regions of China. China remains at this time an overwhelmingly agrarian and rural country, but will flee into the countryside in essence for its survival. But while there, will reimagine itself as a party that in fact takes its foundations from the rural sector of the country. And a key figure in that reimagination of Chinese communism away from an urban-centered to a rural-centered political movement is none other than Mao Zedong,